Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about my creative process in animating R2-D2 upon platform 327 in Cloud City. Now, this introduces a whole new set of challenges for me because I'm a traditional artist generally, and I'm just learning animation. So this has been a road of learning and a little bit of trial and tribulation for me because I've never animated before. So I'm learning new ways to animate using After Effects and Maya, and learning the different processes and the pipeline of doing an animated project. The first part of my project was storyboarding. Quite simply, to plan out what my scenes are going to be, the camera angles, and how I'm wanting to move through the project. Storyboarding was something, again, I've never done before, but it was a great way to be introduced into the pipeline of the animation process for me. The second part of my project was actually coming up with a background setting for you to see during all of the camera angles. For this, we used Photoshop, something I'm fairly familiar with, and we basically did a collage work using stamp tool and different pictures and kind of layering them together. And I actually used a bunch of adjustment layers to kind of get that setting right, get out all the pieces to like be cohesively colored and look unified. And it was fun for me, but honestly, it was just kind of getting my feet wet into the process. So this was interesting for me to kind of think about how I wanted the setting to look, and then later think about how I want to light the rest of my piece. The third portion of my project was to come up with an Illustrator file that would be the interface for the door R2-D2 was going to interact with. For this, it took me a little bit of planning, a little bit of going through and finding reference pictures, because I wanted it to look Star Wars, but I didn't want it to look like the generic Star Wars interfaces. I wanted some sci-fi elements in there that would make it kind of unique to me. And it took a little while for me to do that, but I did eventually come up to getting the Arabesh font and using that in the interface, since Arabesh is going to be the alphabet that's used for the common dialect in Star Wars, so just galactic basic. And I really wanted to pull in some Easter eggs for it, so all of the words that are actually in the interface are little Easter eggs. Like the longest saying is, I find your lack of faith disturbing, or even just the "do it" meme that's so prevalent in the Star Wars series. My fourth part of the project was actually working in After Effects, and we basically just took images from the internet of R2-D2, of Platform 327, of whatever else we wanted to include, as well as our background that we did in Project 2, and put them all together and composite it into one thing that's going to be a 2D animation. Now this is more like a puppeteering kind of animation, not true drawing keyframes and all the in-betweens. So it was nice to kind of have that to dip my toes into versus animating every little scene. My fourth part of my animation project delves into the 3D realm, and this particular portion is what I was so excited about. This is where I was going to be hitting my bread and butter for the rest of my animation career. Modeling, rigging, lighting, and texturing, the technical portions of animation that I was really interested in. I was so excited to finally get into Maya, until I got into Maya, and then I realized that I love it and I hate it at the same time. The biggest problem for me is that Maya is not an Adobe program, therefore all of the hotkeys I'm used to, using space to translate a piece, using just different hotkeys that I'm used to, don't apply to Maya. And learning that was very difficult for me. It was also very difficult for me to realize that using both hands is going to be what really helps you, and that took a while for me to accept and to learn. And for that, all I could really do was just continue working in Maya. But I was ultimately surprised at just how intuitive it was once I started getting used to all of the controls, and once I learned that sometimes you just have to be very explicit in what you're telling the computer that you want to do, and hitting the right keys and going into the right menus, and understanding that took a week or two. But thankfully I did have help. I had help from a senior friend of mine. I had help from multiple other friends in my year who were also doing the same thing. I had help from my professor, and just talking it with other people, I came to learn little shortcuts and little ways to actually make it easier on me to model R2-D2. And it was really fun. I loved it. Like, coming into having this idea and then just poof, it's there. I was able to come up with just simple shapes and then just complicate the shapes, kind of mold them into what I wanted to see. And I didn't only do R2-D2, I did the platform. And then, of course, after this is lighting and texturing, and learning these little things and how the light will actually interact with the textures was fascinating for me. It takes a while for me to really get used to the texturing aspect, as I don't know exactly how I want to do it, but what I've gone through so far is just absolutely fascinating for me. And I'm looking forward to see what this is going to look like. I still have a couple weeks to finish this, but I will have to say I'm very excited to see what it's going to look like, and I want to see this be a very successful piece. Alrighty everybody, that was my creative process video on animating R2-D2 upon platform 327. As I said in the beginning, that was my first animation that I have ever worked on. It was incredibly fun. I enjoyed every second of it. Okay, that's probably a little bit of a lie. There were plenty of frustrating times, but that comes with the territory of learning new programs and learning new skills. But I really did enjoy learning new skills. I really did enjoy getting the hang of it, and once it clicked, that was the greatest moment of just triumph for me. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to talking to you guys again.